Hello, my friends. This is Lynda Lippin, and welcome to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back once again to the Pilates Goddess podcast. This is your host, Lynda Lippin. So today's episode is fun with fascia. And I was actually prompted to do this episode after a discussion with one of my Pilates colleagues who is also a member of my Strong Bones Pilates studio online. And she and I have been teaching for about the same amount of time, work with a similar level of clients, and have also been involved in teacher training for a number of years. And she said to me, Lynda, we hear all the time about fascia. And she's hearing more and more about it. She's out in California, and she said that some of her clients have been coming in after going to different massage therapists and for different exercise programs, and they're coming in and talking to her about moving their fascia and stretching their fascia versus doing things with their muscles. And that just struck me as really odd, and it struck her as really odd. And she was like, maybe you could do a podcast and talk about this. And like so many things, here we are. You may notice that I get a lot of my podcasting ideas from other people. People either asking me questions, asking general questions in Facebook groups online. I'll sometimes just go back through old emails and old questions that I've been asked multiple times over the years by Pilates teachers, by Pilates clients, by educated movers, by massage therapists, by yoga teachers, by, personal trainers. And then I answer them here to the best of my ability. Now, I've always found fascia to be fascinating. And one of the reasons why I love to talk about fascia so much is because for basically my entire reproductive life, I had severe endometriosis, and that endometriosis caused different adhesions within my abdominal cavity and within my pelvic cavity. Now, these adhesions were on my organs, in my organs, in between my organs, clearly have a fascial component, as does your whole body. But interestingly enough, what, cured all of the pain that I was having was a total abdominal hysterectomy and surgical removal of the parts, along with any, bits of endometriosis that they could actually visually see. And then we combined that with cutting my estrogen way, way down, basically putting me first into a chemically induced menopause and then into surgically induced menopause. And I started feeling, I felt better when I woke up after surgery. Like, yes, I had, post-surgery pain, but I could tell that old kind of deep pain in my uterus and around there was gone. And that was really, really awesome. So today we're going to talk about what fascia is, the different kinds of fascia, what fascia does, the different theories surrounding fascia and what it does and how it moves and what we can do to it or not. And then, I'll give you some interesting thoughts to move forward with. And of course, links to everything, including the articles that I'm quoting from, and all of that will be in the show notes for you to review later. Now, one thing that I want to be very clear with everybody about is that when you're dealing with science, there is a whole lot of theory within science. And basically what happens is we have a bunch of theories, which are different stories for how things work and what's happening. And we kind of test those different theories, and the ones, that survive the tests pretty much become what we consider to be scientific fact. We know that those facts can ultimately change based on new evidence, new discoveries, new theories. So there have been a few theories floating around within the movement and Pilates and massage communities for many, many years. A recent one is called tensegrity, right, which you may have heard of, which is a vision of how the body kind of balances itself as a structure almost within this kind of web of fascia, okay, and fascial structures. And so we need to always be kind of looking at that full body and that kind of 3D effect of movement and tightness and tension on everything that's happening within the body. Some of you may have read or done workshops with Tom Myers of Anatomy Trains, right? And studied fascia in that way and looked at, posterior fascial lines, anterior fascial lines, how these things work together. Now, for me, just so you know, in my life, I've done Rolfing, I've done Heller work. Personally, I've had a myofascial release. One of the physical therapists that I worked with in my own studio after my surgery was actually trained by Barnes, who was just down the road from us in the suburbs of Philly. And I, had some, success or some feeling better from all of these things. However, I've never really been convinced that fascia is releasable or movable in the way that people say it is. So let's start to dive a little bit into kind of what fascia is, okay? There's basically 4 kinds of fascia within the body. And there's a subcutaneous layer of fascia, okay? And know that that subcutaneous layer, okay, which includes the deeper layers of our skin and another layer that kind of runs around the very inside of our skin and kind of holds us together. That fat, okay, and subcutaneous fat is also fascia. So lots of people, I think, don't actually know that. Then you have fascia that covers our muscles and our bones and our other connective tissue and basically keeps things separated, right? We know that, for example, in the front of our thigh and our quadriceps, we have 4 different muscles there. They're all very close together. Some have similar functions, some work together, and those 4 muscles are able to exist separately due to fascia, okay, because they all have a layer around them. Then we have a deep internal web of fascia, And that's the fascia that coats or covers all of our internal organs, our lungs, our heart, all of these things. Once again, kind of keeping things separate and compartmentalized. In fact, it's kind of interesting if you've ever heard of compartment issues that people get. Sometimes they'll get a compartment infection, and that is literally an infection that can happen within a structure that's covered by fascia. And the fascia actually blocks that infection from coming to the rest of the body, but keeps it kind of spreading in the part of the body that it's in. So, for example, people can get an infection in their forearm or even in a finger that stays there and doesn't work its way through the body due, once again, to fascia. So again, we've got those superficial layers, right? We have the layers around the muscles and ligaments and tendons and bones. We have fascia around our organs. We have fascia that lines the inside of our bodies. Our abdominal cavity is lined in fascia, right? Our diaphragm, fascia. We have fascia surrounding our lungs. So there's a lot. And then we have fascia that covers our nerve cells, and that surrounds our spine and surrounds all of the neurons. So yeah, there's a lot of fascia happening.
That's fascinating.
Sometimes fascia is looked at like the skin of a grape. You can also, and this might, gross some of you vegan or vegetarian folks out, and I apologize for that. But for you guys, say you open an orange, you've got the thick orange skin, right? Then you have the kind of pith underneath it, the white stuff. Then you have each section of your orange that's covered in fascia. If you open up a section of that orange, it almost looks like there are almost like there's little cells or sections within it, and all of those are also covered by fascia. If you eat meat, if you've ever worked with raw chicken or poultry, you know that as you cut the chicken, there is actually the skin, then there's the layer of fat under the skin, and then under that layer of fat before you get to the muscle is another very thin, almost movable layer that almost feels like a flexible hose or plastic wrap that separates, say, the breast and the thigh and the leg. So when you kind of look at these structures, you get an idea of what that fascia might look like. But here's the deal. A lot of the things that folks are saying are true about fascia, i.e., that fascia can be released, that fascia can be manipulated, that pain is somehow caused by tight fascia, okay? That fascia is the cause of all of our problems, that fascia can cause pain, that we can move our fascia. A lot of these are nebulous at best. And while some conceptual theories, again, like tensegrity, or like having a vision of how the top of your head connects to the bottom of your feet via different lines of connective tissue and fascia, are interesting and can be useful for having our brains understand, okay, movement or attention patterns or things like that. Again, they're theories. These are not proven facts. And these theories and ways of moving don't necessarily work for everybody, which is very interesting to me. The only kind of medical fascial issue that I can think of for you is plantar fasciitis, right? And I think if you haven't experienced it, you will at some point in your life. If you are a Pilates or yoga teacher, or personal trainer, massage therapist, I'm sure you've worked with plenty of clients who have plantar fasciitis. And basically, what plantar fasciitis is where you get some immobility at the ankle joint and possibly at the knee joint. And because the ankle and the foot aren't moving correctly when folks are walking, and this could be a result of just, having poor gait. This could be a result of deconditioning. This can be a result of surgery, pain, or stiffness in other places. This can be, a result of running and different activities that can tighten things, wearing high heels, all of these kind of different factors. But what basically happens is the muscles in the calf get so tight that it starts to pull on the fascial web at the bottom of the foot. And that can cause pain. And it's usually not necessarily pain on movement. Movement often makes it feel better. But it's stiffness and pain on impact. And it's worse, like first thing in the morning after you've been sleeping and you haven't been moving that area for a little while. But again, what's interesting here is, number one, lots of people have that tightness and don't get the pain of plantar fasciitis. Okay. Number two, that the treatment for plantar fasciitis has nothing to do with digging into the bottom of your foot or having a reflexology treatment or a pedicure or foot massage in your pedicure. The treatment is actually to increase ankle strength or calf strength and ankle mobility. And once you get that joint moving correctly, then things balance out, and the pain at the bottom of the foot or the heel starts to go away. Other than that, it's pretty much all hearsay and all pretty theoretical. We know that fascia exists. We kind of have an idea of what it does. But will having a deep understanding of fascia and fascial science really change anything for you in terms of how you move or what you're doing for yourself or your clients? Probably not. You need to know that all of this stuff is still being studied. All of this stuff is still being researched. And, not everybody agrees that all of this stuff is true. What we do know to be true about fascia is that it is extremely strong. And that the only, again, known pathology, there could be more fascial pathologies, we just don't know what they are, is fragile fascia, is fascial fragility. And that usually comes with hypermobility. And sometimes fascial folks who exhibit more fragile fascia oftentimes have more pain. But it's not necessary, and think about that for a second. If folks with fragile fascia who are hypermobile can experience more pain, but their fascia is more fragile, what is going to happen to those people if somebody decides to go in whole hog on a fascial release, okay, for folks whose fascia is fragile? It can make things worse. it can make things a lot worse and a lot more painful. Okay? There is basically no evidence that the state of our fascia can be changed even with forceful manipulation and manual therapy. While not completely implausible, it's also not completely plausible because people, once again, these are all theories, okay? What we do know about fascia is it is an important infection barrier, that it keeps things compartmentalized and separate within our bodies, that it does keep things connected as well. And that's basically what we know. That's about it. Now, what's very interesting, I think, is I actually found a blog post from Tom Myers on his Anatomy Trains blog from back in 2015. And the first paragraph of this blog post reads, "I am so over the word fascia. I have touted it for 40 years. I was even called the father of fascia the other day in New York. It was meant kindly, but now that fascia has become a buzzword and is being used for everything and anything, I am pulling back from it in top speed reverse. Fascia is important, of course, and folks need to understand its implications for biomechanics, but it is not a panacea. It is not the answer to all questions, and it doesn't do half the things even some of my friends say it does." Okay, so that's what Tom Myers had to say about fascia 8 years ago. There's also a lot of different machines and different contraptions out there that are supposed to help us release our own fascia mechanically. There's actually something called the fascia blaster, which if you've seen it online, it looks like a big rolling pin with spikes on it. And you basically, you're supposed to get to a point where you actually do bruise yourself by rolling this thing on your body and supposedly breaking up, fascial adhesions.
Yeah.
There are rollers. If you've ever seen the rumble roller that has, texture on it, again, like little rectangles sticking up from it so that as you're rolling on it, it's digging into your body once again in a way that's supposed to be mechanically releasing your fascia instead of just causing you severe pain as you're using it. And even though I'm looking at my roller right now in my apartment, I don't use the roller to actually roll on a lot of my body. I no longer roll out my IT bands because, my friends, if you've ever seen an IT band, an iliotibial band, that is a thick ass piece of connective tissue. It is a piece of gristle, and it is not something that's going to easily be released. The way that you can take away any pain that's caused on the outside of the leg or the knee, basically you don't get a tight IT band. What you get is tight glutes at the top. You get things that are tight around that structure. You can get weak inner thighs, and so the outside has to do a little more work. And lots of those issues can cause problems with your iliotibial band. But let me tell you something, just like rolling on your IT band is not doing anything for you, once again, other than causing you pain. Now, you may say, but Lynda, when I do that, I feel better. Yeah, you may, well, first of all, you probably feel better right afterwards because you were just in all that intense pain rolling out your IT bands. And it does feel like a huge relief when you're done with that. But you may feel better for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes or so after. But unless you're, doing muscle strengthening and other kinds of work around that area, things just go back to the way they were. I'm even seeing, and this is this is what scares me for the general population, is I'm seeing movement studios and exercise studios that talk about fascial movement, that talk about moving in such a way that you're moving your fascia in the same way that you would get in a deep tissue massage, acupuncture, organ detoxification, or chiropractic. All right. I'm kind of flagging all of us on this one. All right. Number one, deep tissue massage is somebody digging their hands, their elbows, their forearms into your muscles, okay? And they may talk about fascia and about all kinds of things, but really what they're doing is kind of stretching you out. They're releasing muscles, they're stretching muscles, and maybe a little bit of connective tissue. And you, of course, the muscles are all covered in fascia. So are you getting fascial work with that? Sure you are, but every time you move, you're moving your fascia, okay? So like no big deal there. I see these fascial movement studios talking about enhancing lymphatic detox, healing pain, rehabbing back injuries, increasing metabolism, dealing with autoimmune complications, toning your organs. Come on. And frankly, all you're doing in any of these classes is you're exercising. Okay? You're moving and you're exercising. And we know, I always say in exercise that you need a strength component, you need mobility components, you need cardiovascular components. They all do, different things for your body, but basically you want to be moving as much as you can. You want to move your joints. You want to move your muscles. You want them to shorten and lengthen. You want them to work together in groups. You want them to be able to work separately. And yeah, as a movement educator or a movement teacher, if thinking about things with fascial connections makes it easier for you to have a picture of what you're giving to your clients, great. But you're not doing anything special for your clients' fascia. Okay, you're not. So all of these, folks who are like, well, when I move in this specific way, I'm stretching and moving my fascia versus moving my muscles, that's just bullshit. Okay? People tell you that. I'm telling you right now, that's just bullshit. You're getting a massage and they start spouting at you about clearing out your fascial adhesions so that you're feeling better. No one's doing that for you on a table in 45 to 60 minutes, okay? You're getting a rub down, human touch feels good, that kind of stretching of the muscles and the tissues and getting oil into the skin. All of that feels great. Okay, but also if you're one of those people who hates massages and all of that, you're really not missing out on that much as long as you're getting good movement yourself. And what feels good in terms of movement is different for different people. The other interesting thing about fascia is that a lot of people don't feel pain in their fascia, but will feel pain around their fascia, or will feel pain in their organs or in their muscles or in other areas. And again, if you just remember that fat is fascia, okay, fat is fascia. I think that takes some of the mystery away. All right. Your fat layer, the inside of your skin, that slippery stuff that, separates the chicken breast from the chicken tender from the chicken thigh. Those things are fascia. In the human body, if you've done dissectional anatomy, fascia is thick. Fascia doesn't stretch a lot. That's not what it's there for. And the fascia over our muscles probably does a little bit more than others, just because our muscles can allow for concentric and eccentric contraction. And we know our skin can stretch. But really, what we need to be concerned about as movers and as movement instructors is just getting people to move. And when people are moving, they're moving their bones. They're moving their bones using their muscles. Okay, that is what they are doing. And by doing that, they're moving their fascia. It's not that they're moving their fascia and then doing other things. Fascial movement is part of simple movement. So I'm sorry if I kind of sound, a little negative about this, because I know so many of us are so excited about these kind of new theories and ways of thinking about the body that come out. But this fascial discussion kind of reminds me of that whole hot Pilates discussion that I had on the podcast a little while ago, where I said, scientifically, there is no basis for needing to exercise in a 90 degree and above room. That's Fahrenheit. And it doesn't loosen fascia. It doesn't make your muscles work any better than in a 70 degree room. But working in that 90 degree room can also, really hurt somebody. If you have high blood pressure, if you're pregnant, if you have low blood pressure, if you're menopausal, if there's all kinds of reasons for not wanting to do that. If you're asthmatic, if you're hypermobile, working that warm can cause you to overstretch. It can cause you really to not be able to breathe. And it's really not, everything everybody cracks it up to be. And for everybody who's sitting there going, but it makes me feel better and I feel like I'm detoxing, like, come on. If you go for a run and you sweat your butt off, if you're going to say sweat is detox, that's going to detox you as much as, doing hot yoga or hot Pilates. Again, just move. Just get your clients moving. They'll feel better. They'll function better. And stop talking to them about their fascia, okay? Because we can have all the fun we want thinking about fascia, but really at the end of the day, we want to get people stronger and more functional and more balanced. And that has to do with what? Mobility, with muscle strength, with stamina, with endurance, and not with releasing fascial adhesions or stretching or moving from our fascia, which is really not a thing that anybody can do. So with that, I'm going to let you go. I have some links to some interesting articles. I have links to Tom Meyer's blog post. I have links to some of my work in movement, and I would really love to hear from you guys about this. So, shoot me an email, Lynda, Lynda, at lyndalippin.com, spelled just like my name. And that'll be in the show notes. I would really love to hear what you guys think about this one, because this is kind of opening a big can of worms. There's a lot happening here, and And I'm basically giving you a balanced, science-based point of view on this. And know that there are many other theories and points of view regarding this topic, especially since it's something where the science isn't really solidified, so people are still doing research and working on it. And that means that you're not going to have, a lot of fact going on right now, just a lot of theory. So that said, enjoy doing some research on fascia and the different theories around fascia, but know that these are theories, not facts. And as always, thank you so much for listening to the Pilates Goddess podcast. I would love it if you would go on Apple Podcasts or iTunes or Spotify and leave a review and a rating. Talk to you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Music brought to you by Nerd Salad. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, especially if you liked it. And please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks.